That's a good question. I mean, you never see me from the waist down, but I'm locked in here. I'm not. If I dare criticize someone like that, I can't get out of here.
I don't really see how you could say that Alabama is out of this thing.
Is it just about Alabama winning this game?
I certainly think that a blowout loss would help their case, but I still believe that Alabama could get in, and the playoff predictor definitely thinks Alabama could get in, even with a sort of close loss at Auburn.
We live in a hot take universe, Mike, and I'm as guilty of it as the next person. I have buried and given Jim Harbaugh last rites about 10 times, and I'll do it again Saturday if they lose. The Ohio State-Michigan game really doesn't matter, especially if Ohio State loses. Was I right in making that point?
You were right, as long as Ohio State doesn't lose to Michigan and then lose again.
You got to admit the biggest fear I've got is the odds are in Michigan's favor. They're due, if nothing else. I mean, you could only beat the same team how many straight times? You know what I'm saying?
Pat Dooley, are you not buying the resurgence of Tennessee football? I mean, come on.
Well, look, I used to call them the Kardashians, right? Because they looked good, but they never did anything. Then I started calling them Uncle Rico because they always want to go back to the past. They're always out in the field throwing the ball, for the camera.
I don't know what these media members are drinking, but it's definitely spiked with haterade.
I don't think anybody realistically thinks the SEC's going to get 3.
Well, that's why I don't know why Bama fans are all bent out of shape about comparing their resume to Utah.
They're just doing it to do it. I mean, listen, what else are they going to do right now?
I guess not make travel plans to Atlanta. That's for darn sure.
On Thanksgiving Eve, we're expecting a call here shortly from Bill Hancock, who is the executive director of the CFP. He is a regular here on the Wednesday after. We'll join him in just a minute. Mason, I tell you what, let me we'll just wait here for a second. I think Bill is about to join us, so we'll hold off on any other calls. Of course, all of you know by now that the new rankings are out, and there's a new number 1 team in the land, and of course it is Ohio State. I think we're ready to go with Bill, so let's welcome Bill into the program. Bill, good afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving, and really appreciate you coming on.
Good afternoon, Paul, and happy Thanksgiving to you and to all the listeners.
By the way, you remind me, and I feel like I know you well enough to ask, is there a tradition around the Hancock house on Thanksgiving?
Oh, man, a lot of family here. It's my favorite holiday. I love the parade. I love the eating. We have the Turkey Bowl, about the 30th annual Turkey Bowl touch game on Friday.
Well, that's
my
great.
goal for Thanksgiving weekend is to not get injured.
Well, Bill, I know you're quite a runner, so I think you ought to be in probably pretty decent shape.
Well, if I could have a 26-mile pass pattern, I could be open every time.
No doubt. Yeah, I've always loved the day before Thanksgiving. I'm in New York today, as I am every Wednesday, and just walking around, it's a combination of Thanksgiving, Christmas. Everyone is seemingly off and in a great mood and in no big hurry to go anywhere.
Well, I love New York, and especially at holiday time. So I'm right with you on that.
Well, let's get to last night. We love breaking news, and we had it. The new number 1. So take us inside the room and tell us how the committee arrived on the Buckeyes.
Well, Ohio State and LSU, as you know well, are 2 excellent football teams. And I think the committee just felt like Ohio State was a more complete team on both sides of the ball. And everyone needs to remember that every team's resume changes every week. And Ohio State's resume was improved with that victory over Penn State. So the committee just felt like Ohio State belonged at number 1.
Was there any one thing in particular other than the Penn State win?
Just the whole resume and how much it did improve with the victory over Penn State. And I think the committee feels like, I think a lot of observers, maybe including you, feel like Ohio State's defense may be a little stronger to this point. But those are 2 really, really good football teams.
Yeah, I do agree. Listen, I don't always agree, but I do agree this time. And by the way, my vote does not count, even though I'm going to lobby for a media vote next year because I know that it would be well thought out. Let me get to the 4 and 5 position. Was there any conversation that you can tell us, and maybe you can't, between the Georgia spot at 4 and Alabama at 5? And I bring that up only because we all know the South Carolina comparison. We also know Alabama lost to LSU. We know the resume, but was that ever a consideration to move Alabama up?
Well, the committee talks about every spot in the rankings when they go through that 7-step process to put the teams in. And this time, like last time also, Georgia's 3 wins, Auburn, Florida, and Notre Dame, were what pushed them into number 4 again this time. And I think coincidentally, we're talking again about a team that has probably a superior defense. What have they thrown? 3 shutouts, I believe, this year, and I think only one rushing TD. And I have to say this again: those Georgia and Alabama are 2 very good football teams, but that's what pushed Georgia into 4 again this week.
Listen, I hate to be the guy that always tells you what's said, especially when it's on national television, because I don't expect you to consume every bit. But I'm on with Greenberg today and Ryan Clark and Desmond Howard, and we're having the typical reaction. And Greenberg just went all in on the committee moving Ohio State up. His word was a joke. Ryan Clark and Desmond Howard seemed to think. By the way, I'm not quoting Brando this week. I'm quoting other people. The other two just.
Hey, Paul. Every time you say Brando to me, it makes me laugh.
Well, you're thinking it's Marlon Brando, right?
Bingo.
I am, and the other two were. I mean, they really do believe that this is all a setup to prevent, in the event Alabama gets in, an Alabama LSU rematch. Now, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but is there any way to combat? And that includes me, all the various things that are said. And by the way, they're said and disseminated to a lot of people who may or may not believe them.
Well, first of all, remember how much we love the passion of college football. And everyone has an opinion, and I treasure every opinion that I hear. But if you remember our conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago when you asked me about the comment by Stephen A., and when I just said, that's just wrong, and please tell him that. I respect him, but he's wrong. Well, that's my same comment on what you just said. That's just wrong. The committee, all they have to do is rank the top 4, and there's no other considerations. And that's what they do. They don't try to set up any kind of matches in the semifinals. Just rank the top 4, and where they fall out is where they fall out.
Well, glad to clear that up because it certainly was bugging me sitting there that I couldn't immediately call you and have you join in on the conversation. The final question I think everyone is curious about, Bill, and I realize there are 2 weeks left, but people are wondering about the 4 spot, and there are a lot of variables, but those of us in the media are trying to make it an Alabama, Utah, Oklahoma conversation. I know you can't do that, but we are. How do those 3 match up, at least up until now, with an incomplete resume?
Well, you have to know, and I know you do know, that the committee doesn't project ahead. They just base the rankings on what's happened to date. So I can't speculate. Neither you nor I know what's going to happen in the games this weekend, and certainly not next weekend. The committee has those teams lined up the way they feel they belong this week, but the resume is incomplete, as you said. And I think everybody needs to keep in mind the tiebreakers. When the teams are viewed as comparable, then those 4 tiebreakers kick in. As you know, conference championships won, strength of schedule, head-to-head results, and common opponents without any weighting. It's up to each committee member to wait. WEIGHT, and we all have to WAIT to see what's going to happen. No one can predict, and I love hearing all the talk about it, and it's a lot of fun for everybody. But we all just have to wait and see what happens on the field.
Okay, let me go back to one more because I'm really having fun quoting various people to you, and I know you have fun with it as well. But I want to go back to my colleague Mike Greenberg, and I'm going to read you something that not only he tweeted, but he said it on the air. He gave a commentary where he used the word joke, but in his tweet he said this: if LSU beats Georgia in the SEC championship, they will be the first team in almost 80 years to beat 5 top 10 teams in a season. That they aren't number one in the country is positively outrageous. Now, I realize he's going ahead a little bit, but he's also talking about what he saw last night. Is there any way to respond to that?
Oh, I try to make it a practice not to respond to what I read and hear, but I think the rankings stand for themselves. The committee just, as I said, felt like Ohio State was the more complete team this week, but again, with 2 more weeks to go.
Finally, the question I've had a few times today up here in the media center of the world: why does the committee release the rankings when they do, considering it is confusing? Some people think it's convoluted. Some people just will never understand this because you have people, Bill, as you well know, talking about college football and the CFP that really don't swim in these waters very much, very long, and they show up on whatever date the first rankings come out. They haven't gone through a mock. They haven't really gone through this exercise that we go through every week. Is there a way to answer this other than to indicate that it's just done to create interest?
Well, that's not the primary reason. It does extend the college football weekend out through Tuesday night, which is not a bad thing. But we thought when we set this up, we thought we don't want people to believe that the other polls and other rankings are the end-all, be-all. We wanted the committee to be able to step up and say, hey, wait, this is ours. This is what we're thinking. So don't put too much in those others. And we don't start until week 10 because we want to wait and see. We want enough games to have been played so that the committee can make a reasonable decision. I like the fact that the committee gets together for 5 weeks before selection weekend. It enhances the committee's knowledge of all the teams. By the time we get to selection weekend, they have debated every single aspect of every game. And I think that's healthy. I think that experience in debating the teams by the time we get to the end is healthy. So those are some of the reasons why we do it the way we do, and I feel like it's the right thing to do. And I love, as we talked earlier, I'd love to hear what people think about what the committee's done, and I'd love to be able to give you something to talk about on the air, for crying out loud.
Well, Bill, listen, I don't thank you enough, but I do appreciate it because we have a lot of time here that we deal with, and this is topic number 1 for about 6 weeks. So I don't know where we would be today without you.
Oh, you'd be in New York City having a great time. I hope you get to go to the theater tonight too, and I wish I could be with you.
Well, thank you, Bill. I did see To Kill a Mockingbird a few weeks ago, and it was I don't know if you had a chance to see it yet, but I'm sure you have. It's quite extraordinary.
Oh, I love the book. I just love the book. I love Atticus Finch and Scout and Jim and all of them. So I'm with you. And let me just say again, happy Thanksgiving to you and to all the listeners who really make this engine of college football go. Without all those listeners, you wouldn't have a job, and neither would I.
You're absolutely right, and I need it right now pretty desperately, Bill. Thanks anyway. Thanks for being on. Happy Thanksgiving to your family, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Paul. Take care. Bye.
Great stuff. Bill Hancock joining us right here on the program. We'll take a short break.
Florida State's probably going to get a new coach next week, and they're going to start over. But for Florida, it means getting to 10 wins, which was one more win you had the regular season. last year, and it means you're showing progress, and it also means you're going to get to a nicer bowl. But it also allows you. Let's face it. I mean, Paul, well, you saw the Miami game Saturday, and Miami and FSU are both in the toilet right now. Why not keep your foot on their throat, and win this game, win the state championship, and say, hey, there's only one team that's recruiting-wise. There's only one team that's been in New Year's Six bowls. The other ones are hoping to get to Shreveport or whatever, So that makes it a huge game for Florida and for these seniors as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it just seems not much has gone right in that state. I'm interested, Pat, beyond this game, because I think we all know what's going to happen. Just your thoughts on the Gator season, because I mean, all these college football playoff conversations, and I tried to explain to somebody up here today, I think it was Stephen A. Smith. I said, hey, I was talking about Auburn and saying this is really a good team. I mean, they lost at Florida. He looked at me like okay, what does that mean? And I explained Florida's resume, and it just doesn't seem like anyone wants to listen that the Gators probably, with somebody else's schedule, would be in great shape right now.
First of all, why were you discussing college football with Stephen A. Smith? Okay,
that's a good question.
That's the A part of that. The B part of it is, it has been a nice season. It has been a fun season in a lot of ways. But again, when you lose to Georgia and don't win the East, it's not a great season. On the other hand, when Jim McElwain won the East, it wasn't a great season because they always lost to FSU at the end of the year and then got, boat raced by Alabama. So, I think this has been a really nice another step, and I want to say a baby step. Last year was a big stride in getting things where they wanted to get them, and now they've taken another nice step. They need to finish it off by beating FSU to get to 10 wins. But look who they've lost to. They've lost to LSU and Georgia, who are 1-4.
We welcome you back. Let's get some reaction to what Bill had to say, and Randy is up next. Hey, Randy, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how are you? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much.
I saw you on Stephen A. this morning. I'm sure you caught a lot of flack for agreeing with him on the rankings. But anyway, number one, I heard Desmond Howard a little bit ago trying to compare LSU's win over 128th ranked Arkansas was as good a win as the Buckeyes beating the number 8 Penn State. I mean, are you really kidding me there?
I thought that was a ridiculous comment.
Yeah, it might have been the dumbest thing I've heard in a long, long time. But one other thing, I've never heard anything about Ryan Day being considered for Coach of the Year. Here's a guy who's got 14 starts and 14 wins as a head coach. I think Ohio State's going to run the table. He'll be 18-0 as a head coach, but I'm not hearing anything about him getting consideration. I know Ogeron's done a great job, but what was your thinking on that?
Yeah, listen, I must say I haven't given it much thought, but for a first-year coach, it's been phenomenal. And I was asked by, may have been Stephen A. today, about Ryan Day and the difference. And Urban Meyer did leave him a very good team, but this team also, at least going into the Michigan game, has not pulled one of those road disasters which we saw last year at Purdue and the year before at Iowa that Urban was famous for. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's one other thing I never got to talk to you about. You just really destroyed Ohio State as far as losing to a 6-6 Purdue team, but you don't seem to have a problem with Georgia losing to a 4-8 team.
Well, listen, I wasn't overly impressed, but I felt Georgia would come back, and the difference is Georgia had a resume, I think, that got them back, but. I mean, and it's not over yet. And if Georgia doesn't beat LSU, it's really not going to make one bit of difference.
Well, there's one other thing I wanted to comment on. there's three aspects to football. There's offense, defense, and special teams. The Buckeyes got a field goal kicker that's made a 49-yarder and a 55-yard field goal, while LSU's kicker is missing extra points now. That could be crucial down the road, you know what I'm saying, in a close game.
Listen, special teams are always important. I watched an NFL game the other day, I think the Panthers and the Saints, where the guy missed a 30-yard field goal to put the Panthers ahead of the Saints in New Orleans with 2 minutes to go. I mean, he had missed an extra point. I've never seen such bad kicking in the NFL, and I'm used to it in college, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell Desmond maybe he ought to go see a doctor, because I think maybe he took one too many shots to the head.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to jump in there because it took me a while to digest what he said about Arkansas. Hey, thanks for the call. Cam in Charleston, you are next up. Hey, Cam.
Hey, Paul. How you doing, man?
We are doing great. Good to have you on.
Hey, man. Good to be here. So had a couple of things. So Clemson alum, of course. I just took a slight issue with when you were talking about our schedule, saying, that, you had 5 teams out there that could come in there and run the table, as Clemson's already done. The only problem with that is, most of those teams were beat by Georgia. Georgia got beat by South Carolina, who we play this week, 4-7. I think you might be breathing too much of the New York air up there, Paul. That's all I'm saying.
Cam, I hate to break this to you. There is no air up in here in New York.
If you're closed in, that's true. You can't see the people out there. I mean, before you know, you become a social.
The weird thing, it was 60 degrees yesterday, and I took a walk at lunch, and I said to myself, this is going to be a beautiful day with the sun out, but you don't have air, nor do you have sun, because there's so many buildings. You're always in the shade. So, hey, thanks for the call. Great to have you on. Billy is in Cleveland. You're on the air. Hello, Billy.
How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you.
Happy to hear that. All right, so I just want to talk how OSU football, they're just ridiculous this year, and it is unbelievably annoying to watch for me, considering I'm a Notre Dame fan from Cleveland, and I just get ripped apart for how bad Notre Dame is compared to OSU.
Well, listen, Notre Dame's a good team. They're just not a great team.
Yeah, that's the issue. We don't have a coach that can separate ourselves. They got Ryan Day. They just restacked themselves, and we hold on to Brian Kelly.
Well, listen, I've always felt Brian Kelly has reached a ceiling. It's not a bad ceiling. Notre Dame is an important team, but they're not in Ohio State's league, and certainly they're not in. They proved last year they don't belong among the elite. Red Dog is up next.
Does every Clemson fan have little man syndrome, or is it just me? I mean, the guy calls you, Paul, and starts talking about who they've beaten. Clemson doesn't beat anybody. I mean, they never beat anybody. So, and, he's got his own ACC network. Tell him to call in there. I mean, they have Clemson fans. I mean, it's like they've won 2 national championships, but they have to call into the Paul Finebaum show on the SEC network and validate themselves. I mean, if it was up to me, Clemson and Georgia Tech would be both in the SEC East, and Georgia would whip them every year, if it's up to me. But Georgia Tech, they're the ones that left the ACC. We didn't leave the SEC, and that was way before my time, but I know my history. But, Paul, have a great day. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much, Red Dog. I appreciate it. So let's move along. Mike is in Georgia. Hey, Mike, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm a first-time caller and a big Bulldog fan. And not many people, other than the ones right around here, are giving Georgia much of a chance against LSU. Just quick minute. Just give me how we can beat them and your thoughts on that game, Paul.
Okay, sure. Oh, you're asking me? I think Georgia's defense is good enough to keep them in any game, and I think when Jake Fromm is on, he can be a serviceable quarterback. And when I say serviceable, I don't mean that as a shot. I mean that as a quarterback that can get Georgia enough points. Now, I think the real question is can Georgia's defense slow Joe Burrow down enough? The only thing I can offer for a case in point is Auburn's defense. They're similar. You could argue Georgia's is better, and Auburn only gave up 23 points to LSU.
That's very true, and that's kind of what the fans around here are banking on, and it would really shake up the polls if Georgia did win that game. Where do you think LSU would go?
My guess is third or fourth, and I mean I think they would. Even though they say they wouldn't, I think they would try to avoid a rematch of a game we just got through watching. So they would probably put 1-4 and 1-3.
That's what I was thinking too. Well, that's all I had, Paul. Don't want to take up much more of your time. Just thanks for taking my call.
Thank you. Yeah, the one interesting thing, if it turned out that Georgia and LSU played each other again, which don't think that's going to happen. The game would not be in Atlanta, even though the two playoff games are in Atlanta and Phoenix, because it would give Georgia an advantage over a higher-ranked opponent. So it would be hilarious if Georgia and LSU play each other and the game is in Arizona, while Clemson and presumably Ohio State were to play in Atlanta. We're up against a break. More to come. 90 minutes to go. We've had a good time. See more guests to come on the program. Stick around. Here comes Lynn Bowden to save the day, the speedy wide receiver, taking on additional responsibilities and has been quite good. Thank you. Lynn joins us now. Thanks for coming back. I mean, I find your story to be one of the most amazing of the year, and I know you don't want to get hung up on what you've accomplished. You've just your next man up. But talk about your odyssey this year as the quarterback of the Wildcats.
I appreciate you guys for having me back on. You know, this year it's just we had a lot of ups and downs. You know, we were really just searching for our identity. You know, how we was going to define ourselves, and you know, I'm the type of guy I want to step in and do what's best for the team, and I think the team bought into that, and we just never looked back from there.
It's not easy being a student athlete. It's especially difficult when you have a tricky position like wide receiver. But how much more have you had to study and work and look at film now that you are the team's quarterback?
I had to dedicate most of my day to learning the different things. You know, it's way different from high school to college. You know, high school, my line, we went big on big. So when I first got in there, I had to learn Rip and Liz, Lester Ralph, the protections just from the line standpoint and where I'm hot off of. So I had to spend most of my days in there with Coach Henshaw.
In many ways, carrying this team on your back, even though I know you're not going to admit that, but a lot of people see it that way. What do you think your takeaway will be from the 19 season?
See, I'm the type of guy I don't really like to talk about myself, but I mean, if you must know, about me, I found out about myself that I got a lot of heart, you know, just within, and I'm very passionate about everything I do. You know, I'm a winner. I hate to lose. You know, I love to win, and I just love the game. So like, I just want people to understand, like, it's bigger than me. Like, that's why I stepped up to the role for this team. You know, I wanted to be the best I can and be in the best situation that we can be in at the University of Kentucky.
Welcome back. Glad you're here. And more calls as we are really having a good time here on Thanksgiving Eve. Let's try to roll some more calls here. David is in Florida. Hello, David.
Hey, Paul. How you doing, sir?
We're doing well. Thank you.
Listen, I got a two-part question. One has to do with Nick Saban. Is kind of double talk when it comes to him kind of politicking for his team to make it into the CFP this year. I remember last year when Georgia, almost beat him in the SEC championship game, and afterwards Saban says, I don't want to play them again. But then he turned around and said, oh, well, they don't deserve to be in the college football playoff. And, well, this year, how can he make a claim for his team when his star quarterback is down? And the college football playoff committee definitely takes that into consideration. And, I just don't see how he can claim that. I mean, it's not like, the LSU year where they played each other twice because they went into double overtime. And the second part is, boy, I really wish Georgia had all those receivers and won the NFL last year because we'd probably give LSU a better game.
I think you're right about that. Hey, great to hear from you, David. Thank you very, very much. Let's check in with with Frida, who is up next. Hello, Frida.
Hello, and thank you for having me. Good afternoon. I have what may seem like a bizarre question, but I'm very interested in sort of the psychology of such a high-pressure week for these young men that play ball literally all over the place, certainly in the SEC. And my question is, are you familiar with or are there social media policies for these young men? I mean, do coaches use them strategically if the boys are slaughtered in something on Facebook or other social media? Just curious if you know if there are policies.
Frida, I do. I know a little bit. I mean, there are people on every coaching staff. Listen, there are pretty much people on every. I mean, I can assure you, I don't tweet anything without my bosses reading it. I don't mean that I run it by them. I mean that they will know. They will see it. Certain schools like Clemson, I know, is one that Dabo Swinney does not allow his players to tweet. I think it's during the season. Other coaches have different policies. I'm not crazy about that because you and I both know that young people live on social media. It's a much more important part of their lives than maybe it is to people older. And that's how they exist. That's how they communicate.
That's right. Well, I appreciate it. I just was curious because I've seen some way not very kind things that folks have said this past season about my quarterback. And, I appreciate that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Frida. Let's, on this Thanksgiving Eve, let's head to South Carolina.
Greetings
Kat.
and salutations, Mr. Paul.
What's up, Kat?
I wish you a very happy Turkey Day tomorrow, you and your family and all the boys and girls up there at your studio that work on your show. I hope
Thank
all
you.
folks out there listening have them a great Thanksgiving. And don't forget, you can't have Thanksgiving without oyster dressing and palmetto moonshine.
Oh, there's no question, Palmetto. I'm having a sip of Palmetto right now. I had some delivered to my hotel last night.
Good for you, Mr. Finebaum. I'll tell you what, one year I marinated my turkey in palmetto moonshine, did it overnight, and decided I was going to deep fry my turkey. Big mistake. Columbia Fire Department was out there for 2 hours trying to put that thing out. Anyway, can I make a bold prediction?
Okay.
I predict that South Carolina will ruin Clemson's season in an upset that will shock the world.
Oh, my goodness. Now we're talking, my friend.
Yes, sir. I'm getting back into the mode. We're going to be up there Saturday, and we are going to end their season, and Dabo will be going back to Clemson crying.
You know how I hope the game ends?
How?
On a touchdown by Clemson that is called back for holding.
Oh, Lord. You worse than Junior.
And by the way, I hope it's the wrong call, too.
Yeah, that's cold, Mr. Firebaum. That's cold, but I love it. You have a great Thanksgiving now.
Thank you, my friend. Always great to hear from you. Let's continue. Craig is up next. Hello, Craig. Good afternoon.
Happy Thanksgiving Eve, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Do they serve chicken and dressing in New York City?
Only on a bagel.
Only on a bagel. Well, anyway, I like the way you think. As soon as the committee rankings come out, I called a friend of mine and I said, "Did you see what they just did?" And he says, "No, what'd they do?" I said, "They flip-flopped LSU and Ohio State because they're planning on Alabama winning out and don't want an LSU-Alabama rematch that quick."
Well, first of all, it really would be unfair to LSU to have to beat Alabama again in the first game. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to give them as much credit as maybe we give them. But if you listen to Hancock a few minutes ago, it doesn't sound like he's too concerned about all the speculation.
No, he's not. But I called today, Cam. I called to give Clemson a little love. We haven't heard much out of them since the first of the year. I've got some wild dogs here. And,
it's okay.
Mercy. My Bulldogs are going crazy.
Sounds like a bunch of Georgia fans.
Anyway, if everybody in the top 10 had played Clemson's schedule this year, wouldn't we be in a mess right now?
Yeah, because I can't think of one team in the top 10 that would be undefeated. That wouldn't be undefeated.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all I wanted to share today. And tell Cam he might need to get a little air before his head explodes.
I will. Hey, thank you very much, Craig. Good to have you on. Robert is up next. Hey, Robert.
Hey, what's going on, Paul?
Hey there.
Paul, I wanted to take up from my man Desmond, because y'all called him an idiot, a statement this morning. The only thing Desmond was doing was comparing the 2 weeks, the week prior, when LSU gave up all those yards against Ole Miss, and Ohio State blowed the team out. You should have moved them then if you were going to move them. Don't wait till they struggle, and LSU beat Arkansas by 30-some points, and you move them this week. That's what Des was saying.
That's a fair point. I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't understand it, but to me, I feel like Alabama's going to slide in. That's why they moved it. They went on and did it this week. Don't wait because, they won't have an excuse. One other thing I would like to say, Paul, I know you guys have been high on Kirby and saying Kirby going to be the next guy to dethrone Nick, and no one ever thought Ed Orgeron would be that guy. But it's possible to be the one to do it. I think Ed is in the picture now. He could be the guy to dethrone Nick Saban in the future.
I tell you what, if they were to meet if they were to meet in the playoffs and he beat him again, can you imagine?
I know, and that'll be 2 wins in 1 year, and man, that's something nobody thought about a year ago. Most people thought Ed would be out on the streets right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, there was plenty of reason to think that.
Yeah, but based on Ole Miss, that's the only thing people can come up with. Now, he did a great job at USC, I think, and he probably should have got that job. But, hey, the schools that got all the coaches that they wanted right now, I bet they wish they had coach over USC and Texas. That's all I got, Paul.
Hey, you had a great call. Thank you for the call. We are heading to a break. Still more to come. We're thankful that you've joined us here on this Thanksgiving Eve. I know a lot is going on out there if you're on the road.
The Iron Bowl is, one of the great rivalries in college football. If you're a competitor, you love to play in games like this game this week and playing against a really good team. And, maybe as it should be, a lot comes down to this game. It's kind of a season within a season, so to speak. And I think if you have to explain that to your team or your players, they don't really know what's going on in football. So I think the key to the drill is great preparation, great practice, really doing a good job of preparing in the game, because we've seen all year long that, when we do that, we play well. When we don't do as well. Injuries for our team, a couple guys, Ruggs and Phil Mathis will start back to practice today and still be evaluated day to day. Raekwon is still day to day, and Will Reichert is still out as far as this game is concerned. I think Auburn has an outstanding team. They have some very impressive wins over top 10 teams, top 20 teams. The only teams they've lost to is, some teams that were ranked in the top 10. So they've been very competitive and played really well, in all those games. I think their defense is, one of the best defensive teams in the country, probably anchored by, two really good players up front. Derek Brown and Marlon, are both really, really good players and have been difficult for people to block all season long, but they play great team defense. They play with a lot of toughness. So this is going to be a real challenge, for us. Offensively, they've been very effective creating balance. I think Bo Nix has done a really good job of doing that for them. They're very effective running the football. They've got really good skill guys outside. They've got a really good runner. Whitlow's a really good runner. So this team is very good on special teams. So, this is, the best team we've played probably so far this year, and it'll be the most challenging place that we've played. So, real challenge for our players and our team.
We are back. Glad you are too. Let's get some calls, and Squirrel is up next. How you doing, Squirrel?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you taking my call. Are you going to be spending Thanksgiving in the Big Apple, or are you going to be heading home tonight?
No, I'm out of here early in the morning, going home for the day, and then heading off to Auburn Friday morning.
Sweet. Well, I hope you have safe travels there. But no, I
Thank you.
really enjoy you having Hancock on every week, and I really enjoy his perspective. And I've been getting a lot of grief from the Bama haters in this part of the country, where there's millions of them, as you know, and they're trying to make the case for Utah and how they deserve to be in, or Oklahoma, how they should be in or deserve. But I keep reminding them that the committee's job is to get the 4 best teams, not the ones that maybe should or ought to or things of that nature. And then didn't he say a week or two ago that there's a pretty good gap between the 5th place team and the rest of the field?
I believe he did, yes.
Yeah, he did say that. So, Utah is not on their heels as quick as as close as people think they are. And another thing I try to point out is, and I don't expect you to be a draft guru, but if you had to estimate, Paul, how many players do you think will get drafted off the Utah team this year?
2 or 3.
Just ballpark. Okay, how many, just ballpark, do you think might get drafted off the Bama team this year?
Double digits.
Yeah, and there's no better judge of talent than the NFL. That tells you who the best team is right there between Alabama and Utah. I mean, boom, case closed as far as I'm concerned. But I appreciate you taking my call. Hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving holiday, and aloha.
Thank you very much. It is great to have you on. Let's continue with more. Dylan is in Mississippi. Hello, Dylan.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, we're doing great. Thank you.
I was trying to see if I could get your take on Joe Moorhead's future if he loses tomorrow.
I don't think he has one if he loses tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't hate the guy. I'm saying I just know, Morrow being biggest game, we don't go bowl eligible. We don't beat, our biggest rival. I feel like they probably kind of kick him to the curb if he loses tomorrow.
Yeah, listen, you don't know what's behind the scenes, but I think if Joe Moorhead loses the game tomorrow, he gets called in to John Cohn's office Friday morning, and Cohn would probably do what I would do and say, listen, can you give me an argument, a reason for us to keep you? I would really like to know what Moorhead says.
Yeah, me too. I'm saying I don't hate the guy, but he definitely isn't living up to the standard as we'd want.
By the way, I don't mean to be snippety here, but I'm not really sure he has much of an argument either way.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't think he's a great coach, but I wish he could be a little better coach.
Well, listen, I think everyone was hoping for that. It hasn't worked out very well. Thank you for the call. Kirk is calling next. Hey, Kirk.
Hi, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
What are the chances someone other than an SEC team comes in at number 4 in the college football playoff, assuming LSU finishes undefeated?
It's possible. Listen. There's a Big Ten component that has not been considered very often. If Minnesota were to beat an undefeated Ohio State team.
I was thinking about that option as well. Seems to be a little bit of a lean toward Alabama and or Georgia being the number 4 team, and or flip-flopping Georgia and LSU. But I was just curious about any other.
Yeah, I think that's the best. I think the Big Ten would have a better argument than the Big 12 or the Pac-12. Hey, thanks for the call. We have an hour to go. We hope you will stick around.